Imagine sitting in a quiet corporate lobby for almost 2 hours while name after name gets called, doors keep opening, people come and go, and no one ever says yours. Imagine realizing that the moment they finally recognize who you are, everything changes instantly. If Danielle McClain had known how that morning was going to unfold, she would have chosen softer heels. The sharp, stylish ones she wore were meant for quick meetings and confident exits, not for standing, waiting, and pretending that time did not hurt. But there she was, standing beneath the tall glass awning of Westbridge Corporate Plaza in Scottsdale, Arizona. The desert sun reflected off the polished stone outside, while inside, everything felt cool, distant, and controlled. Danielle held her portfolio tightly under her arm, the leather edges worn just enough to show it had been used, not just carried for show. This meeting was supposed to change her life. She had prepared for weeks. Practice interviews, research until midnight, notes were written so many times she could recite them without looking. Danielle had imagined every question Craig Ellison, the regional manager, might ask. Her nerves were present but focused, sharp. She was ready. She arrived first, 15 minutes early, exactly how she had been raised. Early is on time is late. Late is unacceptable. Inside the lobby, the air smelled faintly of lemon polish and expensive cologne. The floors gleamed, the walls were glass and steel. A large abstract sculpture made of twisting metal sat near the elevators, probably worth more than her car. Danielle approached the front desk where a young receptionist sat, casually chewing gum and scrolling through her screen. "Hi, I'm Danielle McClain. I have a 10 o'clock meeting with Craig Ellison," Danielle said clearly, her voice calm and professional. The receptionist glanced up, tapped a manicured nail against the keyboard, then picked up the phone. She whispered briefly, nodded once, then hung up. "Mr. Ellison said he'll be right with you. Please have a seat." Danielle smiled politely and thanked her. She chose a chair near the floor-to-ceiling windows, crossed her legs neatly, adjusted her skirt, and placed her portfolio carefully on her lap. She sat tall, shoulders relaxed, chin lifted. 5 minutes passed. Then 10, then 15. At first she was not worried. Meetings ran late, important people were busy. She scrolled through her phone, reviewing notes she already knew by heart. Her stomach fluttered, but she breathed through it. "Stay calm, stay professional, you earned this." 30 minutes passed. Danielle stood, smoothed her blazer, and returned to the desk. "Excuse me," she said gently. "I just wanted to check if Mr. Ellison is still available." The receptionist barely looked at her. She offered a tight smile that felt more like a wall than reassurance. "He's finishing up a call. He'll be right with you." Danielle thanked her and returned to her seat. This time she sat straighter. The air felt heavier. Was she being impatient? Was this normal here? She watched two men in suits walk in, laughing loudly about a golf game. The receptionist jumped up immediately, offered them coffee, and walked them through the secured doors without hesitation. Danielle blinked. Maybe they had appointments, maybe not. She did not want to assume anything. Still, a tight feeling formed in her chest, not anger yet, just discomfort, a quiet sense that something was off. She told herself not to overthink it. Do not make a scene. Do not be that woman. She checked her phone. 10:58 a.m. Nearly an hour had passed. She adjusted her blazer again, fingers fidgeting at the seams. Her professional armor felt thinner now, slightly worn, but she held her posture. She would not look bothered. By 11:15 a.m., her lower back began to ache against the stiff chair. She shifted slightly, careful not to show discomfort. Her face stayed composed, shoulders relaxed. If anyone noticed her at all, they would see control, or at least that was what she told herself. From her seat, she could see the front desk clearly. 2 more visitors arrived. Both white men, crisp shirts, confident smiles. They were greeted warmly, offered drinks, and escorted back with easy respect. No explanation needed, no waiting. Danielle looked a second too long, then forced herself to refocus. Maybe they were regulars, maybe they mattered more, but the thought settled heavy in her stomach. She gripped her portfolio tighter. The receptionist did not look at her again. No one did. Danielle might as well have been invisible. It was not just that she was ignored. It was how she was ignored, as if her presence was inconvenient, as if sitting quietly and waiting was some kind of problem. Everyone seemed to look around her, through her. Across the lobby, a janitor pushed a cleaning cart past the elevators. He was older, gray hair tucked under a faded baseball cap. Their eyes met briefly. His look was not dismissive, not rushed, just human. A small nod passed between them. Danielle returned it with a soft smile before lowering her gaze again. She did not want to draw attention. Even now, she measured every movement, every breath, every glance. A few minutes later, a tall woman in a sharp navy pantsuit entered the lobby. Danielle recognized her instantly. Avery Lindstrom, Vice President of Operations. Danielle had seen her speak at leadership panels. The receptionist stood up immediately. "Good morning, Miss Lindstrom. Coffee, water." Avery waved her off politely and walked straight to the elevators. Danielle's throat tightened. She sat even straighter, adjusting her blazer again, willing herself to look important. Necessary at 11:30, Danielle stood and approached the desk again. "Hi," she said evenly. "I'm wondering if I should reschedule. It's been quite a while." The receptionist looked up like she had forgotten Danielle was there. "Oh, Mr. Ellison is finishing a call. He should be right with you." The same words, the same forced smile, the same nothing. Danielle swallowed hard. Shame rose in her throat, sharp and uninvited. Shame she did not deserve. She nodded and returned to her seat. This time, when she crossed her legs, her eyes burned. She kept her face neutral. She would not cry. She would not shift. She would not give anyone the satisfaction. The clock ticked loudly. Something inside her was changing. At 11:58 a.m., Danielle stared at her phone. 2 hours, life moved around her, conversations, laughter, coffee cups clinking. She sat unseen. Would they do this to someone else? Would they leave a white man waiting this long? Was she imagining it? Her heels squeaked slightly on the marble floor. A few people glanced over, annoyed. Danielle froze. She sat perfectly still. She thought of her mother in Little Rock, Arkansas. You have to be twice as good just to get half as far. Now she understood. She opened her portfolio, not to read, but to hide. Then movement caught her eye. Craig Ellison stepped out briefly, laughing with another manager. His eyes passed over her like she was furniture. Then he disappeared again. Danielle felt hollow. She considered leaving. But leaving felt like quitting, and she did not quit. The receptionist glanced at her again. Mild irritation. Danielle clenched her hands. Then the front doors opened, and everything changed. The sound of polished shoes striking marble echoed through the lobby, sharp and confident. Not one pair, but several. Danielle looked up as the glass doors swung open wider than usual. 5 people walked in together, moving with quiet authority, the kind that did not need announcements or raised voices. The air in the lobby shifted instantly. Conversation softened. The receptionist straightened her posture and smoothed her blouse without realizing she was doing it. Danielle's heart skipped. She recognized 2 of them right away. Martin Beasley, the CEO of the entire company, and Sandra Whitlock, the Senior Director of Finance. These were not people who waited. These were people others waited for. People whose names carried weight in boardrooms and careers in their hands. Danielle hesitated for half a second, unsure if she should stand. Before she could decide, Sandra's eyes landed on her. Not a passing glance, a real look. Sandra smiled, warm and genuine, the kind of smile that reached the eyes. "Danielle M. Lan," Sandra said clearly, her voice carrying across the open space. "I did not know you were coming in today." The words seemed to echo off the high ceilings. Every head in the lobby turned. Conversation stopped. Even the receptionist froze. Craig Ellison's voice died mid-sentence somewhere behind the glass doors. Danielle stood slowly. She smoothed her skirt once, lifted her portfolio and stepped forward. Her heels clicked softly but steadily against the floor. She walked with calm control, even though her heart was racing. Martin Beasley stepped toward her and extended his hand. "It is good to see you again, Danielle," he said warmly. "We were just talking about your presentation from the Leadership Summit. Outstanding work." Danielle shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, Mr. Beasley. It is good to see you as well." Behind them, Craig Ellison had gone completely still. His mouth opened slightly, then snapped shut. Color drained from his face before rushing back in uneven waves. He hurried forward, his steps rushed, his confidence suddenly gone. "Emlan," Craig said too loudly, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. "I am so sorry for the wait. We had a situation come up. No excuse at all. I apologize." Danielle turned toward him, her expression calm, unreadable. "2 hours is a long time for a situation, Mr. Ellison," she said evenly. The silence that followed was heavy. Martin raised an eyebrow. Sandra folded her arms loosely, watching Craig with quiet interest. Craig stammered something about calls and emergencies, but no one was listening anymore. Their attention was on Danielle, on how she stood, on how composed she was, on the fact that she did not apologize for existing. Sandra stepped closer and lightly touched Danielle's elbow. "If you have time, why do you not come up to the executive conference room with us? We would love to hear your thoughts on a few things." Danielle smiled, a real smile. "I would be happy to." Craig tried to recover. He rushed to offer coffee, to carry her portfolio, to insert himself into the moment. Danielle did not engage. She aligned herself naturally beside Sandra and Martin and walked toward the elevators. Craig was left standing slightly behind them, awkward and unnecessary. As the elevator doors closed, Danielle did not look back. She could feel Craig's embarrassment like heat against her skin. Inside the executive conference room, everything felt different. The space was bright. Open, the chairs were comfortable, the tone was respectful. Danielle was no longer a name on a list, she was the focus. Martin slid a folder across the table toward her. "We are in the early stages of developing a new leadership initiative," he said. "After seeing your work, we want you involved." Danielle opened the folder carefully. Inside were plans, timelines, and early budget approvals. This was not a courtesy meeting. This was an invitation. Sandra leaned in slightly. "We need people like you, people who notice what others ignore, people who lead without stepping on anyone." Danielle listened. She asked thoughtful questions. She offered clear ideas. She noticed how they listened, not out of politeness but respect. Through the glass wall, she could see Craig hovering near his office, pretending to shuffle papers. He glanced toward the conference room more than once. Danielle met his eyes briefly, no smile, no anger, just calm certainty. Then she turned back to the conversation that mattered. After an hour, Martin stood and extended his hand again. "Think it over," he said. "But I would love to see you in this role." Danielle shook his hand. "Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity." As she gathered her things, Sandra walked her to the door. "If you ever have an issue with how you are treated here," Sandra said casually, "come straight to me." Danielle smiled softly. "Thank you, I will." The doors closed behind her. Craig stood alone in the hallway, staring at nothing. The following week, Danielle received the official offer letter. The leadership initiative was not small. It was a direct path to a regional executive role. More pay, real authority, real influence. She accepted without hesitation. Not for revenge, not for validation, but because she earned it. That same week, Craig Ellison was called into a closed-door meeting. Whispers spread quickly. By Friday, his nameplate was gone. Danielle did not celebrate. She moved forward. Her first major meeting as leader was full. She stood at the head of the table and said, "Good ideas do not care where they come from." The room listened. Her journey was no longer about waiting to be seen. It was about making sure others would not have to wait. Danielle stood at the head of the long conference table, the soft hum of the projector filling the room. Faces looked back at her, department heads, senior managers, new hires sitting quietly along the walls, notebooks open, eyes alert. The room felt different now, not tense, not guarded, focused. Danielle wore a crisp white blouse and a slate gray skirt. Simple, professional, enough. She did not need armor anymore. She clicked to the first slide and paused for a moment, letting the silence settle. Good ideas do not care where they come from, she said clearly. Neither should we. People leaned forward, pens moved, heads nodded. They listened, not because of her title alone, but because of how she spoke. Calm, direct, grounded. Danielle spoke about access, about mentorship, about noticing talent before frustration turned into silence. She talked about the cost of ignoring people, not just emotionally but financially, creatively, humanly. As she spoke, she remembered that lobby, the stiff chair, the quiet clock, the way she had shrunk herself just to avoid being seen as a problem. She remembered the receptionist's empty smiles, Craig's eyes sliding past her like she was invisible. She remembered the heat behind her eyes and the promise she made to herself to stay. That promise sat with her now, steady and unshaken. The meeting ended with real conversation, not rushed questions, not polite nods, honest dialogue. People stayed longer than scheduled. Someone thanked her for saying things they had felt, but never voiced. Another asked how they could support the initiative. Danielle answered each one with patience and clarity. Over the next few months, the changes spread, hiring processes were reviewed, waiting times mattered. Complaints were tracked instead of buried. Managers were trained to notice patterns, not just numbers. Danielle made sure no one was left sitting silently in a lobby without answers. She did not announce it as policy. She lived it as practice. Craig Ellison's name faded quickly, not with drama, not with speeches, just absence. People remembered him less for his authority and more for the lesson he became. One too many ignored meetings. One too many assumptions. One too many women, especially women of color, treated like interruptions instead of contributors. Danielle did not mention him. She did not need to. One afternoon, as she walked through the lobby of the same building, she noticed a young woman sitting near the windows. Portfolio on her lap, back straight, eyes scanning the room with quiet nerves. Danielle slowed her steps. She smiled and gave a small nod. The woman returned it, surprised, then relieved. At the front desk, the receptionist stood and spoke clearly. "Ms. Harris, they are ready for you." The woman stood quickly, smoothing her jacket, and followed a manager through the doors. Danielle continued walking, her heels no longer sharp, no longer painful. Comfortable, confident, she did not stop. She did not need to. That night, alone in her apartment, Danielle reread the offer letter that had started it all. She thought about her mother's words, about Little Rock, about being twice as good. She realized something had changed. Not the world entirely, but her place in it. Her rise was never about proving them wrong. It was about refusing to accept what they believed was normal. It was about choosing not to disappear when the room made space for everyone but her. Danielle understood now that sometimes people will not see your value until someone powerful names it out loud. But that does not mean your value was not always there. It means the system was slow, blind, comfortable. She had learned to hold her ground, to stay ready, to walk into rooms without apology, and for every woman coming behind her, for every person taught to wait quietly and not complain, Danielle was changing the rules one decision at a time. Some stories are not about a single victory. They are about what shifts after, about who gets noticed next, about who does not have to wait as long. Danielle McClain did not just earn a seat at the table. She made sure the table got bigger. Sometimes the longest wait becomes the strongest proof of who you are. And when your moment comes, it does not need permission. It only needs you to stand up and walk forward. If this story stayed with you, do not let it end here. Share it, talk about it, because sometimes telling one story changes more than one life.